Computer Science and Statistics at the University of Rhode Island. Introduction to VyOS Router. So in today's lecture, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to introduce you how to configure or start to configure your VyOS router. Okay, so unlike any other open or pfSense VyOS is more similar to a traditional router hardware. Okay, it has a real focus on comprehensive support for advanced routing features such as dynamic routing, protocols, and command line interface. However, the engineers that developed or the programmers that developed VyOS did not neglect the features of VPN and firewalls. In our case, we're really going to only really focus on configuring the VyOS router to act as a layer 3 router for our networks. Okay, so the agenda for today is I'm going to introduce you to your VyOS router. We're going to talk about the VyOS command line interface and the different modes, the difference between operational mode versus configuration mode. We're going to learn how to configure host names. We're going to learn how to configure domain name systems. We're going to learn how to configure interfaces and default gateways and a bunch of other different things that will help you get started on your assignments this week. Okay, so that was supposed to happen. All right. So once you have your VyOS router configured and installed and downloaded, you want to make sure you click on all appliances like I am right here. If you hover over, it's going to say browse all devices. You want to make sure you go down to installed and available appliances, and you should be able to see what appliances you have installed and available. But in my case, or in your case, you may realize that you don't have anything available because you did not create a project. So to do that, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to File, New Blank Project, okay, and File, New Blank Project, and we're going to title this project Routing, okay. So we're going to click OK. Well, I'll name it Routing 1 since I already have a project called Routing, and I'm going to click OK. And then you're going to get a blank screen with a blank project that you will need to create, all right. So in our case, we're going to go to, again, browse all devices. We're going to go to installed appliances, and all the appliances you installed should be available. So right here in my case, I should have a VyOS 1.1. I'm going to go ahead and drop that in here, and I'm going to drop one VPS to this one side of my network. Then I'm going to drop another VPS to the opposite side of my network. And then I'm going to put a layer 2 switch to sit between the two of them, okay? And then I'm going to simply duplicate this layer 2 switch so that way I can connect them, okay? And then I'm going to add an Ethernet port from my VPCS to my first switch. Then I'm going to add a RJ45 from my switch to my router, again from my router to my second switch, and then from my switch to my PC. Okay, I cannot configure this router without starting all of my nodes. So in this case, I'm going to click on the green play to start all my nodes. Then I'm going to right click on my VyOS router and I'm going to select console. This will allow me to console into my router. And once you console in, your router is going to take a few minutes to boot and start up. Once your router is booted and started up, you will be able to log into your router. By default, the login is VyOS and the password is VyOS. Okay. Once you have set that up, you will have logged into your router successfully. Okay. And one of the things that I talked about that we were going to discuss in our agenda was the basic configuration of our router. Okay. Right now we are in what is known as operational mode. Okay. So operational mode allows you to really view system status. So if I was to write show configuration, okay, I would notice that I have interfaces Ethernet 0, interfaces Ethernet 1, interfaces Ethernet 2, okay? If I look at the system configuration management, right, I can keep clicking enter to see what else is there. I will notice that by typing in show configuration, I can actually see every single thing or every type of system status that my VyOS has to offer. What is my login? Okay, the user is VyOS. Authentication, if I click on it, it's encrypted, so it's blank, I can't see it. And if I keep clicking down, I will notice that I am at the admin level. I have no NCP server set up. And then I can basically keep clicking enter to see all the different types of configuration that my VyOS has configured in it. And you'll notice that I am back to my operational mode because there's nothing else that has been configured in my VyOS router. All right, so to clear the screen, I'm going to write clear. Clear screen, I think. I forgot what it is. Clear screen. Well, I guess the clear screen is not working. But I'm pretty sure you could look it up. It's something like clear or new screen or whatever the case may be. Okay. So from this mode, I am going to switch over to what is known as my configuration mode. To get into configuration mode, I am simply going to write configure and press enter. I will now have a hashtag or a pound sign, which means I am now in what is known as configuration mode. Configuration mode really allows me to modify my system. Okay. It gives me the ability to make very, very specific changes to my system, such as the following. So I can set system host name. Okay, and I'm gonna change this to CSF 432. Okay, router. All right. So by writing that, my router will now have a new system name as CSF 432. I'm actually going to change it to CSF 432 router 1, and then I'm going to write commit. All right, you want to make sure you do that, because if you do not write commit after writing any of your commands in your router, none of them would be saved or configured. Once you write commit, you have to write save, so that way the configuration can be saved. Okay, so that's one of the key things that you want to make sure that you do whenever you make a configuration in your router, or else it won't be there. Okay, so how do I check if my configuration was applied? I'm going to hit type exit. Okay, I've been logged out, and you notice, let me actually write clear screen. Let me log in first. You will notice now my router is no longer VyOS at VyOS. Instead, it's titled CSF 432. Let me log in again, VyOS. Okay, I am now logged into VyOS at CSF 432 router 1. So the name of my router is now CSF 432 router 1. And to clear my screen, which I did not get to work the first time, I'm going to write clear screen. Okay, clear screen. Let me actually go to configure, clear screen. Okay, there we go. So you have to go into configuration mode first before you can clear your screen. All right. So now that I've named my router, let's talk about setting a default gateway for my router. All right. And usually you wouldn't set this until you've really decided what kind of IP address you've been assigned and how you really plan on configuring and setting a lot of these types of information up. So to set up my default gateway, I'm going to go to set system gateway, okay, hash address, and I'm going to assume that I'm using a /24 address, and I'm going to set my default gateway as a 192.168.0.1, which is on my the first usable IP for my /24. Once I do that, I'm going to write commit. Then I'm going to save that configuration. Okay, so my default gateway is going to be saved as 192.168.0.1. All right. So now let's say, okay, I have two different types of interfaces connected for this network. If I hover over here, okay, if I right click and I set capture packet with Wireshark, I will notice that I have Ethernet interface 0 here. And when I hover over this section, I will notice that, let me see, this is actually not looking correct. Etho0. So this one's Etho0. Okay. The next one should be Etho1. Let's hover over. They can't both be Etho0. Okay. So this one is Etho1, right? Etho1 is right here. Let's hover over here again. And this one is Etho0. Okay. So usually this one's 0, this one's 1. Okay. And if you hover over it, it will actually tell you. Okay. So I'm going to bring my console back up. Okay, now I'm going to set up the IP address for my interfaces. Okay, so to set up your IP address, you want to make sure you stay in your configuration mode. So in order to configure this, I'm going to write set interface Ethernet Etho 0 address. I'm going to set this as 192.168.0.2/24, okay? Because I already used .1 as my default gateway, which is the first usable host on my network. So I'm going to set this one as a .2, and I'm going to press enter, and I'm going to write commit, and then I am going to save this, okay? So now my interface for Etho0 is set to 192.168.0. So I'm going to exit this, and I'm going to go to show, okay? Show configuration, show configuration. And you will notice that my Etho0, right, now has a configuration that's been applied to it at 192.168.0.2, okay? And I'm gonna go all the way down. You'll also notice that I've applied a host name to my router, and I've applied a default gateway as well to my router. So by exiting the configuration mode, okay, and going into operational mode, I can actually take a look at all the different configurations that currently exist in my router, right? Which is actually pretty cool, okay? So now let's configure a different interface, right? And if you just press the up arrow key, you believe it or not, you can actually bring up some of the old commands that you've written, all right? So now that I've written set interface Ethernet 1, I'm going to set this one up. So this interface I'm going to set as .1 slash on a different network. I will set this up as a /27, okay? I'm going to commit this, and then I'm going to save it, and then I'm going to exit, okay? So now I'm going to, again, write show configuration, and you will notice I have my Ethernet 01 set up as 192.168.0.2, my Ethernet 1 set up as 192.168.1.1. So I was able to actually configure my Ethernet 0 and my Ethernet 2. Okay, you're probably asking about my Ethernet 3, right? And the reason I don't have that one up is because I did not really connect anything to it. So if you come here, you will notice that Ethernet 2 is red, meaning it's blank because I did not really assign anything to it. It's red, so there's really no need to configure it. But if I wanted to, I could actually bring a VPS over here, connect it to it, and then I can set up my third interface with a different network, right? So this could be Rhode Island, Boston, and New York, okay? And then I could configure this router to really do a lot of the things that I wanted to do. So that is the basics of how you configure and set up your VyOS router. In your assignment this week, you're going to have to do a few of these configurations to demonstrate to us that you understand how to log into the console and to configure your router to do a lot of different things. Thank you for watching.